When I was 17, my family moved 2 states away without telling me. They left a note that said, "You'll figure it out." I was left to pick up the pieces and try to make sense of it all. 12 years later, after I'd finally made it on my own, they reached out trying to reconnect. But I wasn't interested. I'd built a life without them, and I didn't need them now. Or so I thought. As I sat in my apartment, staring at the email from my mom, I couldn't help but feel a mix of emotions. They wanted to meet up to talk about the past and try to make amends. But I wasn't sure I was ready. My therapist, Melissa, suggested I take some time to think about it, to consider what I wanted from this potential reunion. Was it closure? Forgiveness? Or just a chance to tell them how I'd felt? I decided to meet with my brother, Michael, first. We arranged to meet at a coffee shop in Chicago, halfway between where we both lived. I flew in that morning, feeling a mix of nerves and anticipation. When I saw Michael, he looked older, heavier, with a receding hairline. But his eyes were the same. He stood up when he saw me, awkward and uncertain. I didn't hug him. We just sat across from each other with our coffees. The first 20 minutes were painful, with small talk about the weather and my flight. But then Michael started apologizing, telling me how he'd been a kid when our parents left me, and he didn't know what to do. I listened, watching his face for signs of deception. But he seemed sincere, and I found myself wanting to believe him. As we talked, Michael told me about his life, about his wife and daughter, about his job as an accountant. I told him about my business, about how I'd built a life on my own. It was strange talking to someone who was supposed to be my family, but felt like a stranger. When we parted, Michael hugged me. I let him, but I didn't hug back. I just stood there, feeling nothing. Back at my hotel, I called Melissa, told her everything. She pointed out that while Michael seemed sorry, he was still framing himself as a victim, rather than acknowledging his role in my abandonment. She was right. He'd been 15, not 5. Old enough to pick up a phone, old enough to send an email, old enough to check on me at some point in 12 years. The next day my mom called. I'd given her my number, and she sounded older, raspier. She cried when I said hello, started talking about how proud she was of me, how she'd always known I would succeed. I let her talk, then asked her the question I'd asked Michael. Why me? Why was I the one they'd left behind? Her answer was different from Michael's. She told me they'd been in debt, that they couldn't afford 3 mouths to feed. They'd thought I was smart enough to make it on my own, that I'd go to social services and get placed with a better family. I hung up on her, blocked her number immediately, threw my phone across the room, and screamed into a pillow. The next morning, I had an email from my dad. First contact in 12 years. He didn't apologize. Instead, he wrote about how hard their lives had been, about medical bills and failed businesses, about how Michael's wife needed surgery, and they were hoping I could help. I forwarded the email to Melissa with the subject line, and here it is. She called me immediately, despite it being Sunday. We talked for an hour about boundaries, about forgiveness versus reconciliation, about the difference between helping someone and enabling them. By Monday morning, I'd made my decision. I emailed Michael, told him I was glad we'd met, that I understood he was in a difficult position when we were younger. But I was willing to have a relationship with him and his family, with clear boundaries. No money, no loans, no financial support of any kind. And no relationship with our parents until they took full responsibility for their actions. Michael's response was immediate and telling. He was disappointed, said our parents really needed help. Families should support each other, he wrote. I didn't respond. Instead, I booked an appointment with Melissa and a vacation to Bali. I needed space to process everything. 3 days later, Michael called, left a voicemail apologizing for his email, said he understood my position, that he still wanted a relationship. I didn't know what to believe. I went to Bali anyway, spent 2 weeks on the beach, hiking through rice fields and meditating. I needed the distance. When I got back, I had 6 more emails from my dad, each more desperate than the last. He was asking for my help, telling me that their lives were falling apart, that they needed my financial support. I didn't respond to any of them. I knew that if I gave in to their demands, it would only lead to more problems in the future. Instead, I focused on my relationship with Michael and his family. We started meeting up regularly, and I got to know my niece, Lily. She was a sweet kid, and I enjoyed spending time with her. Michael's wife, Jenny, was also nice. She seemed to understand what I was going through, and she was supportive of my decision to set boundaries with our parents. But despite our efforts to move forward, our parents didn't give up. They kept contacting us, trying to guilt-trip us into giving them money or attention. They showed up at Michael's work, at Jenny's family gatherings, and even in my apartment building. It was like they were stalking us. One day, I received a call from an unknown number. It was my mom, and she was crying. She told me that she was sorry, that she knew she'd made mistakes, and that she wanted to make amends. But I wasn't buying it. I knew that she was just trying to manipulate me into doing what she wanted. I blocked her number and reported her to the authorities. I also got a restraining order against both of my parents. I knew it was the only way to protect myself and my loved ones. But even with the restraining order, our parents didn't stop. They kept contacting us, trying to get us to drop the order. They showed up at court, begging the judge to give them another chance. But the judge wasn't having it. He granted the restraining order, and our parents were forced to stay away. It was a relief, but it wasn't over yet. Our parents still had to be monitored, still had to be kept at bay. But I was determined to move forward, to build a life without them. I had Michael and Jenny and Lily now, and they were my real family. As the months went by, we started to heal. We started to build a new life, one that didn't include our toxic parents. We had our ups and downs, but we were determined to make it work. One day, I received a letter from my mom. It was an apology letter, one that acknowledged her mistakes and took responsibility for her actions. I was surprised, but I didn't know what to make of it. Was it sincere, or was it just another manipulation tactic? I showed the letter to Michael and Jenny, and we discussed it at length. We weren't sure what to do, but we knew we had to be careful. We couldn't let our guard down, not yet. In the end, we decided to take things slow. We would keep in touch with our mom, but we wouldn't let her back into our lives just yet. We needed time to heal, time to rebuild our relationship with each other. It's been a few years now, and things are slowly getting better. Michael and Jenny are doing well, and Lily is growing up to be a smart and confident kid. I'm doing well too, building my business and enjoying my life. I still have my moments of doubt and fear, but I'm working through them. I'm learning to trust myself and my instincts. I'm building a life that I love, a life that doesn't include toxic people. I'm grateful for Michael and Jenny and Lily. They're my real family now, and I know they'll always be there for me. We got our ups and downs, but we're working through them together. As for our parents, I don't know what the future holds. Maybe someday they'll change. Maybe someday they'll be the parents we deserved. But for now, I'm focusing on my own healing, my own growth. I'm building a life that I love, and I won't let anyone ruin it for me.